Hello and welcome back to the Hornby Magazine workshop for a special video about the British Railways Mark I carriages. It's 70 years since the first of these were completed and delivered into service in 1951, and we're celebrating that fact with a whole series of special features here on Key Model World this week. So, being 70 years of the Mark I, we've also been well blessed with some new arrivals for Mark I carriages in O gauge this month as well. But we've also got a huge array of different vehicles.
It's amazing the selection that's available, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's covering both the passenger rolling stock, non-passenger rolling stock, the mainline corridor stock, the 57-foot non-corridor stock for the suburban trains. We've also got multiple units. Anything you can think of with the Mark I, pretty much, with a few exceptions.
Even horse boxes.
Even Mark I horse boxes, yeah, very much so. In fact, the only things I can really think of are some of the real specialist vehicles like the bullion vans, for example, which I don't think are available at the moment. No. So, but we have definitely been well served by manufacturers.
We are blessed. You know, there's a good selection of catering vehicles for passengers on our model railways. I mean, there's kitchen cars that could be done, I suppose, and things like that, whether there was a demand for that. But there's just an abundance of rolling stock from main manufacturers.
Yeah, and that goes across the scales as well. So you've got a wide choice of vehicles in double O gauge, N gauge and O gauge, and that's all ready to run stock as well. So with double O gauge, we'll start there. You've got choices of rolling stock from Bachmann. They've had a long-standing range of Mark Is. I think the first of those were released in 1999. And then we've got a whole array of coaches which is continually building at the moment now with Hornby as well for the Mark I range. Then in N gauge, that's entirely served by the Graham Farish range at the moment. Again, they've got quite a nice range of coaches there. You can put together some quite nice mainline coaching formations there as well. I believe they also do the 57-foot stock for the suburban stock as well. Yeah. And then in O gauge, you've got, well, in terms of mainline corridor stock, you're a little bit sport for choice, really. You've got three different manufacturers making Mark I coaches. So there's the Helgen stock, which is actually the oldest now. You've got Darstad train stock, which is available through Ellis Clark Trains. That was released a couple of years ago. And you've also got the newest version is the Dapple Lionheart Trains Mark I collection, which has just started to arrive. Plus there's also, there's the 57-foot non-corridor stock that Darstad does as well through Ellis Clark Trains. So there's, again, loads of choice in
It's amazing when you stop and realise quite what the choice is across the scales. It's amazing, phenomenal, really is.
Right, yeah. And more on the way as well. I mean, for example, in O gauge, we've got a new Mark I CCT being produced by Helgen, so that's due for release soon. Yeah. Actually, I think it's 2022, I think that was slated for. And then in double O gauge, at the moment, we're expecting the Mark I BCK is the next thing from Hornby to expand their collection. That'll be available in a range of liveries as well. So, lots to look forward to.
No, it's certainly eye-opening when you look at quite what's available, because you look at the ranges and you think, yeah, okay, Bachmann's got a few coaches, Hornby's got a few coaches, but actually when you look at the extent of what they've done in the liveries that they've done.
Well, that's a really good point about liveries, actually, because it's not like you can just buy a rake in maroon and that's it. It's actually, they've been produced in pretty much, certainly in double O gauge, we've got to be close to having pretty much a choice of every livery that's been on a Mark I to some extent somewhere. We've got everything from original BR Carmine and Cream right through to Intercity. There's even been some specials like they did the Sea-Link coaches, which were one of the, where's that? Is it Scotland way, wasn't it?
Scotland, yes. Yeah.
And then they've done the Hebridean set as well.
Yep.
So you've got those choices of sort of specialist type liveries. And then working back, you've got Intercity Charter livery, blue and grey, there's maroon, there's green, there's chocolate and cream, there's Carmine and Cream, and everything in between that Mark Is have carried.
It's amazing. And when you drill down even further, you've also got the regional variations in terms of just in the BR Marine stock, whether it's Western region prefix or Eastern region prefix and so on and so forth. You know, they've really gone to town over the years.
That's right. I suppose the other thing to mention at this point as well is actually at the moment we've really been talking about what is currently available, what you can buy new, really, I suppose, on the whole. But there is a really strong second-hand market for Mark I coaches as well. I mean, Hornby had a previous range of Mark I coaches, didn't they? Which they were all 63-foot under frames, whether they were passenger or parcel stock.
Yep.
There's the old Lima ones as well.
Yes.
And going right back, you keep going further back, there's Triang Hornby ones as well. And even further back than that were some very early Triang Mark ones, which are very under length and very crude. But they're still were an option, I suppose.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at some of these ranges, even small ranges. There was Replica Railways. They did one or two of the Mark 1s as well. They did the FO, the first Open, and the BCK, which they also did in the Intercity Charter Stock. I know you mentioned the livery scheme earlier, which they did those versions. But they've also done the slightly longer versions of the suburban carriages as well, which were used for southern region services, I think, in the West Country, and western region then.
Yeah, because they were
well.
on a 63-foot, 6-inch underframe like
That's right.
Mainline stock.
So they're just slightly bit longer than the 57-foot that Bachmann does. But again, it's a slightly different variant of the carriage. So it's when you, as I say, when you drill down to see exactly what is available, you suddenly realise the extent of what you can create. When you're looking at some of the train formations, as I tend to for features in the magazine, and you look at some of the services that would have come out of Waterloo and commuter services and stuff back in the 60s, you might have had the mainline stock, but also dotted in around, you might get one of these 63-foot non-corridor suburban type vehicles in amongst in the rake. So it's for variety. I mean, we've never had it so good.
No, that's right. And because one of the things I was going to say about past ranges as well is you want to go right back to the very beginning, then there were the old Hornby 00 Mark 1 based coaches as well. I mean, they were template era, so they weren't a true representation. They were wrong length and things, and a few other things that weren't quite right, but they were spec'd as a Mark 1 carriage for the time. And if you're a Hornby 00 collector, you'll always want to have some more.
Absolutely. And there was also kit-wise as well. There was Kitmaster, which did Mark 1 coach as well, which turned into really quite good coaches for their time. So there's been some, the Mark 1 over its 70-year history has been well represented in model form one way or another.
Well, it's pretty much probably going to have had nearly a 70-year history in model form as well in one way or another.
Yeah, quite likely.
Yeah, it was very early in the Triangle and Hornby 00 days that they produced those crude early Tempest Mark 1s. So.
That's right.
I mean, I suppose the difference now with modern production Mark 1 coaching stock and the parcel stock as well for it is we're getting proper scale length vehicles. So everything is the right length, whereas in the past, like for example, the gangway brake, the old Lima model, and actually Hornby's old version of that as well, were all on the wrong underframe,
of course
on the
they were,
63-foot underframe, weren't they? They've since been superseded by new models which are all on the correct underframe now as well, so we're getting that kind of attention to detail to those things as well.
Yeah. It's the variants that are coming through, even down to the fact that the Mark 1 car flats, for example, have been added to the range. Again, it's another variant of the Mark 1 that's appeared in the range. I know in O gauge, actually, Ellis Clark Trains has also introduced recently the Mark 1 car flat as well. So again, you're getting those variants that perhaps weren't as widespread everywhere, but again, gives you the opportunity to model that in 00 and in O gauge.
And N gauge. Because the N gauge Society did the car flat as well.
Of course they did, yes.
So you can have a car flat in any of the main three scales.
It's amazing, isn't it, really, when you stop and think about it.
So, and then, beyond the locomotive hauled stocks, I mean, all the stock we've talked about really so far is things you would need to put a locomotive at the front of. There's also all the multiple unit stock as well. I think it's sometimes kind of a little bit of a forgotten part of the Mark 1 story that actually there were thousands of vehicles built for suburban multiple units for the southern region as well, weren't there?
That's right. In the 1950s, the Mark 1 suburban units started to come through in the mainline stock, and then there was a variant of that in the 60s, and the Mark 1 has been with us for so long and in frontline service for so long. It really doesn't feel like 70 years that those coaches were first introduced.
No, that's right. So I was thinking about that earlier actually, and how many journeys I've done on Mark 1s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously the Mark 1 in terms of real railways is very much the backbone of preservation still. If you're going to go to a preserved railway and take a ride behind a steam locomotive, chances are probably in 90% of cases you're going to be riding in a Mark 1 coach. Of one generation or another and one type or another. And you'll probably find you can sit in open coaches or compartment coaches, or you get a brake compartment coach, there are brake open coaches, there are mixed first and second class coaches as well. There's so many options. It's quite nice, I find, to go and try and sit in a different type of coach each time you go for a ride.
I think that's one of those things. I mean, we were recently on one of the preserved railways, and if you look at one of our other videos, you'll see a walkthrough that we've done of the real thing. And the train was pretty much made up with one of each type of coach, about sort of half a dozen different types, which again, you could walk through from compartment standard class or second class, then you could walk into a first class compartment stock, then you suddenly find yourself maybe in another standard class or a BCK where you had a mix of vehicle of accommodation. And then there was the corridor composite coach, which was effectively a half and half of first and standard class. And then suddenly you'd be in an open standard vehicle, and they could come with tables or sometimes without tables between seats. There's variants. Sometimes there would be 2+2 or 2+1, depending on whether it was a TSO or an SO, so there was all sorts of different variations within, yet from the outside, most of the time they all kind of look similar. The differences being in the window arrangement and placement of doors and so on and so forth, or the toilets and stuff.
Yeah, plenty of choice
when
it comes to Mark 1s. And that's a really important thing about the model side of it as well, is if you wanted to replicate genuine formations, you can do that in model form as well. For example, Mark's train formations features, they show you a lot of different ways you can combine Mark 1 coaches together. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of selective compression with those to try and get them to fit a model railway. Even with a big layout like this, 8 coaches is kind of getting to be towards the maximum one.
Eight's pretty much the most that you're likely to want, but they could run up to 13, 14 carriages in some cases. And whilst some of the modern locomotives that we get today will haul that, it's whether you've physically got the space to have a 14 coach train, but you can make it work by just, as I say, as you mentioned, selectively compressing the trains down to reducing the odd standard class, the odd first class coach, just to make it look about right.
That's right. So we'll focus a bit more on what we've got on the layout next, because we've got quite a nice selection of vehicles on here actually. So we've got a group of different selected trains of Mark 1 stock. I must admit they're not in any perfect order because I haven't done it from that point of view, but I have put together formations which we have got kind of that mix of first class, second class, and all those kind of things. There are other rakes on here which are just literally the full set of what's available. So, for example, the Southern Region Green set behind us, that is the latest set of Hornby's Mark 1 coaches in Southern Region Green, and it's just one of each that's come out. They probably wouldn't be in that arrangement in an actual train, but
they look good, and it works, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, for example, with that train there, you've got a Mark 1 BG 57-foot gangway brake at the front. There's then a CK, which is a corridor composite, so half first class and half second class. You've then got a first class, I think is it?
That's the first open.
First open, yeah. So we've got a first open next. Then we've got the new Hornby RB, which is their most recent release on the Mark 1 carriage fleet, but not the most recent project for Mark 1 because they're still doing the BCK as well. Then behind that, I've got, is it a second
corridor? SK, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got an SK, which is second corridor, followed by an SO, which is second open, and then finally at the back there, we've got one of those standard brake second corridor coaches. So again, you can see there's quite a nice variety of different coach types there, which are all being formed into a train. And all in matching colour schemes as well, which is great. I've now got a few rakes of Mark 1s in Southern Region Green for a certain layout. So
can never have enough Mark 1s.
Well, I would definitely agree with that, although sometimes I think my wallet probably disagrees with that. So,
yeah.
As you can see, I've got quite an extravagant collection of Mark 1s on here, and I'm almost ashamed to say, in a way, that that's not all of them. There's chocolate and cream rakes, there's blue and grey rakes. Another thing apparently I have a problem with.
Well, it just helps mix through the eras on different layouts, doesn't it? That's the thing, we can represent most eras.
That's right, exactly. It's years of collecting gone into all this.
Yeah, it's easily done, and there's been a time where, as a modeller myself, if I see a second-hand bargain here or there, for the right price, then they have to be collected and added to the roster. So
we digressed a little bit there, but let's get back to what's actually on the layout then. So we've got next in line to talk about, we've got a pair of Bachmann's Mark 1 sleeping coaches. We've got a first class and a standard class, which are finished in BR maroon livery, and they're also available in BR blue and grey, which I think they're the only two liveries those coaches.
They are.
Could do with a couple more of each of those to expand my rate probably, but maybe for another day.
Yeah.
In front of that, we've got I think we've got a collection of different parcels van types. Now, they are available in different liveries to what's shown here as well. But we've got there's a 57-foot BG, which is a gangway brake. There's the 63-foot TPO without nets there. Another pair of BGs. Then there's a pair of GUVs at the back. And is there a CCT?
There is a CCT on the far end.
Just beyond the bridge there as well. So again, kind of parcels trains are one of my favourites because you can have all kinds of different vehicles in those as well. So, but that's pretty much all Mark 1. It is all Mark 1 stock that's there. So.
Yeah.
We've then got, behind the A4, we've got another cut of Hornby's Mark 1s there as well, in a mixture of BR Maroon and BR Carmine and Cream. And covering off, there's the BG, BSK, and Corridor Composites, quite a few different vehicle types in there actually. Must admit, I can't see them all from here. I can't remember what's in the train.
You've got an FO at the back, you've got a BSO, which is only produced through Hornby. They introduced that a year or two back. Then you've got the restaurant buffet, BSK. We've got a CK there in Carmine and Cream, and then we eventually end up with the BSK and the 57-foot BG in
front,
Maroon.
Yeah. And then if we skip forward right to the front then, we've got a couple of the units that are available as well. So there's two different types of units there. There's the Bachmann 2 HAP, which is a suburban high-density unit, but based on the BR Mark 1 carriage profile. And that's, this is Bachmann's most recent EMU release, apart from the new 4BEP, which we're covering in the next issue of Hornby magazine, issue 169. And then behind that, we've got the 4TC set, which is one of the later generation Mark 1 type EMUs. So that was introduced in
1967 for the...
Yeah, 67,
they kind of turned up in the mid-60s, 66.
Yeah, I think it was 66 when the first one was complete, wasn't
but
it? So.
They were introduced for the electrification of the Bournemouth Main Line, 1967.
And there's, from that same era of units, Hornby also does the 4VEP, which is a self-powered train, whereas the 4TC is just propelled stock. And then coming back to the suburban stock, like the 2 HAP, there's also the Bachmann 2 EPB, which is another electric unit. There's also the 2H, which is a diesel-electric version, pretty much of a 2 HAP within reason. There's also the 4CEP, which is the it's a companion to the new 4BEP, isn't it? Because they
That's right. It was
boat trains.
the full corridor stock for passenger use. The BEP, the difference being the buffet car.
Yeah. That's right. And then also, what we can't forget as well, one of my favourites, the MLV as
well.
the
MLV.
The motor luggage van, which is basically, it's a battery and third rail powered parcels car with driving compartments at each end. And they were tacked onto the boat trains. So you'd have an MLV, a 4-car 4CEP, a 4-car 4BEP, and a 4-car 4CEP to make up a Dover boat train, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. And occasionally they would get used as locomotives.
Yes.
You know, they would haul parcel stock occasionally. Even into the 90s, I think when there was a drought, they would be seen on tank wagons running between depots, just transferring water.
Yeah, I've got to say I've seen
for the carriage cleaning units.
Yeah, it's, and they were quite handy units, really. One of their design features, but they were designed to be able to run off the power in Dover docks, weren't they? So they had, I think it was 20 minutes of battery power on them, which is quite exceptional for 1960s battery technology when you think about it. So they'd charge up from the third rail, and then they could run off the juice for 20 minutes, and then they had to go back to the power.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'd be stuck in Dover docks.
That's right. Dover, I think, and Folkestone, they would just offload cases and parcels onto the ferries.
That's right. And then moving on again, because I'm aware that sometimes Mark and I will over-talk about Southern Multiple Units. So we've got to
move to another region, quick.
Yes. We'll move back to some Midland region, or Midland and Western region Mark 1s actually in this set. So this other set we've got here is all Bachmann Mark 1s. So at the front behind the Britannia, we've got there's a BCK, which is a brake corridor composite. Then behind that, we've got an FK, which is a first-class corridor coach. Behind that, then there's a CK, which is that combination of first and second-class seating in there, in Carmine and Cream. Then there's another CK in Maroon. There's then a restaurant buffet, which is actually an Eastern Region numbered one. It's a really eclectic mix.
Which is the different variant to the one that Hornby have done down there, because that's right. What they call the restaurant miniature buffet.
That's right.
Which is the RMB.
Yeah, and that one's the RB.
And that's the RB.
Somewhere I've got the other version, which is the RKB.
Yes, there was Bachmann's done variants of it and called it also an RU, I think, a restaurant unclassified as well.
Yeah, so there's one of them somewhere in a stock box. Then behind that we've got a second corridor, which is a Scottish numbered one. We've got an Eastern Region FK, and then at the back there's another brake corridor composite. Actually, it's quite unusual for me to have actually got two brake corridor composites in one train, because they don't tend to be that common.
No.
There were only in certain areas where you saw the BCKs, and there tends to only be one of them in a train. You normally see more BSKs, so the brake second corridors, rather than the brake composite corridors.
Yeah. Interestingly, the one carriage that is missing in the Mark 1 range currently, really, that would probably complete things, is a Mark 1 BFK, brake first corridor, which would be related to the BCK, but it's just a means of that BCK coach is a really good example of a vehicle that technically, from a railway operator's point of view, you could just have the one carriage behind a locomotive. All you need is the BCK. It's got everything that is required for the passenger railway at the time, because it's got the guards compartment, it's got the first class compartment, and it's also got standard class compartments.
And space for a bit of luggage.
And space for a bit of luggage.
Yeah. And also, well, talking of brake coaches, Hornby does also do the brake second open as well, doesn't it?
That's right, which is just at the very rear of this particular rake of coaches, which, again, the window arrangement is the way of spotting what's what. The BSO and the BCK have a very similar window arrangement, but actually there are differences if you look closely. It's all down to the placement of doors and windows in the luggage van.
Yeah. And the real big giveaway for those for me is always looking through the windows, because the BCK has got a corridor compartment,
of course,
and the BSO is open.
It's all open, yes, and you do notice that within the Hornby tooling. You do notice it's an open carriage.
That's right. And then to wrap up the double O gauge side, then, so the other thing we mentioned car flats earlier. So Bachmann does the 63-foot car flat. We haven't got one here on the layout today, but we have got one in well, I know you've got a couple in your collection of stock, haven't you?
Yeah.
And then at the front of the layout there, well, right at the front here, we've got a pair of the Mark 1 horse boxes as well, which are another unusual type of vehicle. They were originally produced as a limited edition by Bachmann for the model centre, but now become part of the Bachmann range as well, and available in BR Maroon and BR Southern Region Green when they turn up. So.
Yeah. Nice model, that.
Yeah, it is, yeah. It's another model that I have several of, but they tend to spend most of their time in a box when I'm trying to find use for them.
Yeah.
They did tend to sit in the siding on Grosvenor Square when we were out at Sherry's. I had a little cut of horse boxes there. The idea behind that was they had KDs on them as well, so we could actually join them onto a passenger set to take the horses off to the races, but actually what they did is sat in the siding all weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, you're always so busy getting things in and out of stations and getting locomotives swapped around.
There's not always much time to shunt things at an exhibition, is there? So, anyway, right, let's change of scale and let's talk a little bit about N-Gauge. Now, N-Gauge, well, going back into the past first, way back when in the sort of 70s, 80s, early 90s, Minitrix did a collection of Mark 1 coaches. They were wrong. Is the only way to describe them. Not quite as wrong as the Limo Mark 1s for N-Gauge of the days of old, which were also just wrong. Graham Farish was the better choice of the era. It had basically they had a clear plastic body shell, and then they tampo printed the body sides of the clear plastic body shell, which is quite a natty way of doing it when you think about it. It's like we make one tooling for it to make a body shell, and then we'll print on the sides.
Good way of getting flush glazing.
It is, yeah. We definitely have flush glazing, and they were in the Graham Farish range for decades. I'm sure they were sort of 80s period when they were first producing those. Certainly produced throughout the entire of the 90s and into the 2000s when Graham Farish became part of the Bachmann portfolio as well. Yeah. So they still existed then. But since then, there is a whole brand new collection of Mark 1s from Graham Farish through Bachmann, which are essentially they're tooled to the same standard as what you'd expect from a double O gauge ready to run coach. So you've got proper detailed bodies with moulded parts for everything, got correct window layouts in those mouldings for the different vehicle types as well. And again, they've been quite comprehensive in their vehicle types. And you've got all the main vehicle types you'd expect. You've got brake coaches. They only do the BSK at the moment, they do the BCK. But they've also got the second open, the second corridor. There are restaurant cars. There are first class coaches. And there's definitely a CK as well in terms of the mainline 63-foot stock. There's also, we mentioned the N-Gauge Society car flat. So that's available. That's on the 63-foot underframe as well. The Mark 1 horse box is also available in N-Gauge as well. And you've also got, a choice of parcel stock as well. Because actually they do the 57-foot BG, the 63-foot TPO van, the 57-foot GUV van, and they do the Mark 1 CCT as well. So again, even in N-Gauge, you've got a pretty comprehensive selection of locomotive hauled coaches there. There's also the 57-foot non-corridor suburban coach in that collection as well. So again, a really good collection of different vehicles there you can use for N-Gauge trains. And again, with our N-Gauge collection, we've got quite a few of those which we used to run Bannerthorpe as well. And finally, on the N-Gauge thing as well, I also mentioned actually there's lots of different livery choices there as well. As far as I remember, off the top of my head, Graham Farish has so far done BR Carmine and Cream, BR Maroon, Western Region Chocolate and Cream, Southern Region Green, and British Railways Blue and Grey on the Mark 1 fleet. I'm not sure whether they've done it City or not, so I'm not going to guarantee that one. So that wraps up for me for N-Gauge for the time being. I think the next thing to think about is then a bigger scale of O gauge.
It's an exciting time for O gauge modelers because the Lionheart Trains coaches, of course, have come in recently and look superb.
Yes, so yeah, it's a brand new collection of O gauge Mark 1s, and well, I'm really impressed with them. I've got 3 of them so far for the layout. I've got a couple more on order to build up a train. So the first arrivals came in April, and they're available in Southern Region Green and BR Maroon to start with as the first batches to arrive, and that's modelling the brake second corridor and the second corridor so far. But there are more vehicles on the way, so the collection's also going to include the corridor composite, so the CK, and it also include the second open, so SO coach as well. And they're in the fullness of time, you'll be able to buy vehicles in BR Maroon, BR Carmine and Cream, BR Western Region Chocolate and Cream, BR Blue and Grey, and BR Southern Region Green. Did I say that already?
If you didn't, you have now.
Yeah. And then each one of those is going to be available both numbered and unnumbered. And I believe there's 2 numbers on each BSK as well, so you can have a BSK each end of your train.
Yes, so you've got the top and tail ability.
That's right. Yeah. And then they're also available both DCC ready and DCC fitted, because they've got a full set of interior lighting parts in there as well, so you can have fully controlled DCC operated lights if you've got a digital controlled layout.
I think for me, it's the amazing amount of detail, that level of detail they've gone to inside the coaches, just down to luggage racks and mirrors and lighting.
Yeah, they're definitely a step up in terms of that detail, and actually I think the presentation of them throughout, from like the boxing, the way they arrive, I think the actual vehicle itself, the way they run on the track, they've got a really nice product there. Yeah. And for my money, it'd be my first pick in terms of O gauge Mark 1s at the moment.
Yeah. But there are other ranges, of course.
There are other ranges as well. Yeah, I mean I've got a healthy rake of Helgen Mark 1s as well, which I use on the Garden Railway. I've got a 7-coach rake of those, and again I've been really happy with those as well, to be fair. The tumble home's not perfect on them, which I think everyone knows pretty well with O gauge sector. But again, there are quite a nice range of different vehicles there available from Helgen for that. So you can get again, they do the BSK, the brake second corridor. They do the CK, the corridor composite. They do an FK, first corridor. They do a second corridor, second open, and they do an RMB as well, restaurant miniature buffet. And they've been, well, the first ones were released quite a few years ago now. I can't remember exactly what year it was. It was mid-2010s, I think. So there's been a few batches now. So the first batch was released in, I think it was BR Maroon, Blue and Grey, and a couple of the steam era livers. I think they did Southern Region Green and Chocolate and Cream at the time as well. But there's since been reruns on those. They did a batch in Maroon, Blue and Grey and Chocolate and Cream about 2 years ago. Yeah. And there's another batch that's just come out now from Helgen as well. And these have got updates as well. So the main feature to look out for now is actually the latest batch of Helgen Mark 1 coaches for the first time run on either Commonwealth bogies or the B4 bogies. So whereas all the previous versions from Helgen have all come on the BR B1 bogie instead. And there's more modern liveries on them as well from that point of view. So you can now pick up an O gauge Mark 1 from Helgen in Blue and Grey, Intercity, Network Southeast and Regional Railways colours.
Putting him to the test now.
Yeah, there's a lot of carriage liveries to remember here.
For me, I love the Gov. I think the 57-foot GUV that they've done just looks right. Yeah,
it does, yeah. Well, the GUV is great, and they do the BG as well. Yeah. So in terms of non-passenger carrying stock, there's those 2 choices as well. So again, quite a nice range of different vehicles there from Helgen for O gauge. And then the third range to talk about as well, and actually again I think it's another really nice collection of coaches, is the Darstead set of O gauge Mark 1, which is available through Ellis Clark Trains. And he's done the mainline stock, so the 63-foot corridor stock, in a variety of different liveries. I've seen most of the main liveries on there. So again, Carmine and Cream, Maroon, Western Region Chocolate and Cream, Blue and Grey, Southern Region Green. He's done Intercity ones as well. They're all available from him. Plus there's also, I think he's either done or is doing the Hebridean set as well.
Right, yes.
LNER,
which is that green and off-white livery.
That's right, yeah. That's sort of apple green and cream, isn't it?
Yeah.
So those are in the market as well. And again, got some nice features with those. They've got magnetic gangways on them, so you get gap-free running. They've got Buckeye couplings on them as well, so they're nice and easy to couple together. They've got interior lighting on them too. And again, he's done a lot of work inside with those to make sure they've got that interior detail too. And they run on die-cast compensator bogies. They've got a die-cast underframe, and they've got a combination of, I think it's injection molded plastic for the ends, if I remember rightly. And then the sides are etched metal with details added on top. A good range of coaches there, and a good choice again for what people might want for their layouts. And importantly as well, again, if memory serves correctly, you can take them out of the box and run them on analog or DCC without a debug decoder in them as well.
Right.
So they're quite a nice feature of those.
They do look good.
Yeah. In fact, that is definite because I've got a rake of his 57-foot non-corridor coaches down there, which are all illuminated as well, and I haven't had to put any decoders in those.
Because that's the only range that's got the suburban style vehicles, isn't it? In
for O-gauge, that's right. Yeah, so the 57-foot suburban stock is, well, it covers the brake third composite, and first compartment stock, and available again in different liveries. So it's available in original BR Crimson, BR Maroon with lining, I think the BR Maroon without lining as well, and BR Blue, plain blue as well. So a nice collection of different vehicles there to make up the suburban range you want as well. So as part of our Mark 1 celebration here on keymodelworld.com, we've included a set of features which go through each of the available vehicle types and the liveries that are available as well on each of those, which is all available for you to read here on our website. And there are features covering both 00, N and O gauge, and we've also got a separate feature on parcel stock for 00 gauge and one on multiple units as well, because there are a lot to cover, so we thought they deserved their own separate space. We've also got some extra special videos, so Mark's done his tour of the real set of Mark 1 carriages as well. We've also got our video for the new Lionheart Trains Mark 1 carriages coming out as well, and we've got some extra features and reviews there too, so lots to look forward to. We've got some other features you might have seen from past issues, but you might not, so things you might have missed in the past. I've got our reviews of some of the most recent coaches and arrivals. And we've got also your lighting guide for a Mark 1 using the DigiKeys system.
That's right, we put one into the Hornby BSO. Yeah,
that's right. So there's lots to look at there, lots to get involved with, and we hope you enjoy all the content we've put together. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Enjoy.